Good evening. This is the Thursday, July 10th, 2025 regular meeting for the South Haven Planning Commission. Call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And next up, we'll have the roll call.
Michael Campbell.
Here.
Paul Fitton.
Here.
Clark Gruber.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here.
Mary Hasley.
Here.
Eddie Polk.
Here.
Bob Sherman.
Here.
Janice Varney.
Here.
Tim Stegman.
Here. Item 2, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 3, meeting minutes of Thursday, May 8th.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the meeting minutes of May 8th as printed.
I'll second.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, public comment. Citizens in the audience may address the Planning Commission regarding items on the agenda for which there is no public hearing, which would be item 5, elections. Anybody wish to speak? Okay, seeing none. The Planning Commission comment log, quite lengthy, so bear with me. Wayne Pacina, regarding would like property on M140 rezoned industrial, would like this to be considered during master plan discussion. Kim and Phil Rome, master plan, commercial designation at North Shore near Oak Court. Keith Kalinowski, master plan, does not support any changes for Victoria Resort or property near Bundy's Bakery. Terry and Bill Dawson, master plan, concern about map changes for property near Bundy's Bakery. Helen Tosin, master plan, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. Ronald and Joan Molitor, master plan, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. Gerard and Catherine Molitor, master plan, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. Daphne and Kevin Crooks, master plan, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. Anita Efren, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. Jim Samkowski, information on Casino Beach subdivision. Kathleen Allard, 2 communications, both regarding master plan, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. Phil and Kim Rome, master plan, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. Ann and Tom Serafin, master plan, concern about rezoning property near Oak Court. And the Corello family, concern about 241 Oak. Are there any have I missed?
Chairman, I think there was one from Todd Keppert. Did you read him?
What's the date?
July 8th.
I don't have that one. What was the synopsis for his?
About the master plan for North Shore Drive near Oak Court.
Okay. Any other ones I missed?
And then I for ease of discussion tonight, I submitted comments that the consultant can use. I'll just highlight them.
There's comment to the PC log.
It was submitted as a written comment for the master plan update.
Okay. Did you want to give a synopsis or?
I'll do that during the hearing.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, is there anything else for public comment? Okay, unfinished business, actionable, none. New business, election for chair and vice chair. And I'm going to make a motion that Sherman and Heinig be appointed president and vice president respectively.
Is it chair and vice chair?
Or Either way, chair, vice chair, president, vice president.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here's your gavel.
For the benefit of those at home, is it possible for a staff member to move their names so people aren't confused later on when someone posts something on Facebook and they have the wrong individual? There we go. It's like magic.
Thank you.
Did that without a ServiceNow ticket.
Chair.
Thank you so much.
That's kind of weighty. Way to go, Bob.
What's that, Eddie?
Yeah, I just said that was kind of weighty.
Yeah, I was not expecting this, so I guess let me say thanks for the vote of confidence. Thanks, Tim, for nominating Larry and I. And I'll say for the record, thanks to Tim for many, many years of service to this board, to the city of council, and to the city of South Haven. So I think your service has been long and very fruitful, so thanks very much for that. Larry, I'll be looking for lots of help from you. Thank you very much in advance. And Kelly, I know you'll keep us both on the straight and narrow, right? Thanks. Next item on the agenda, master plan update, for which we have a public hearing scheduled. Is there a motion to open a public hearing?
Staff comments first. Staff introduce.
Oh, that's why I need a lot of help, Larry. Thank you.
And I just need to know, do I kick you soft or kick you hard?
Just whatever it takes to get my
A little
attention.
tap on the foot there. There we go.
Whatever it takes to get my attention.
All right.
Kelly, would you do a lead-in, please, before
Sure.
we
I can
perhaps
do
open
that.
a public hearing?
Yes, of course, Mr. Chairman. So for the past 16 months now, the Planning Commission has been engaged in a master plan update process. And as you all know, we received a Coastal Communities grant from the state of Michigan to update the 2018 plan with a coastal lens. So the focus of the current effort has been really to add the coastal chapter and to ensure that our housing language is sufficient to support any zoning text amendment changes that we might want to make in the future to encourage the development of more affordable or middle-income housing in our community. The plan has been out for distribution for the required 63 days, probably a few more than the required 63 days. Tonight we do have Becca Schrag, I always do that too, from the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission. They've been working with us on the plan, and we need to hold a public hearing.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to open a public hearing then?
I move to open a public hearing.
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Anyone wishing to make a comment regarding the master plan can come to the podium.
Chairman,
We need a
vote.
Oh, excuse me. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is open, and citizens in the audience wishing to make a comment about the public hearing can come to the podium. If you would, please identify yourself by name and address. You'll be limited to 5 minutes, and Samantha will be keeping the time. Anyone who'd like to speak?
Good evening. Welcome to your new position.
Thank
There
you.
you go. First up for you, my name is Jim Wettlaufer, a longtime South Haven resident of 3 Oak Court, which is 2 pieces of property down from this 89 North Shore Drive, which is known commonly as Bundy's Bakery. I guess I just have a few questions and concerns regarding this upcoming master plan thing that is involving this piece of property. I was here in January of this year, and at the end of the meeting, there was some confusion on the red lines that were drawn, what parcel is considered for this rezoning. Is it currently the 89 North Shore Drive, or is it 89 North Shore Drive, including a residential piece of number 1 Oak Court? I was still confused by that, and at the end of the meeting, Kelly mentioned that Oak Court was not involved as a residential piece. I just want to make sure that is still applicable. Is that?
I believe that is the case, correct, Kelly?
Yes, and I guess in the interest of preserving time, I think it would be best to take questions down, if that's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, and then we can try to answer questions during discussion later. I don't want to take up each person's time with questions.
That would be a great idea. Is
Okay,
that all right
and then
with
I
you,
just
Jim?
have a comment about that then.
Please.
Regarding the rezoning of 89 North Shore Drive as commercial use, I'm highly opposed of this committee voting in favor for that. It has been a non-conforming commercial business in the residential neighborhood for many years. We live very close to that property. It's a very dense and populated area, problems with parking, noise, etc. The one thing this neighborhood does not need is a full-time commercial entity going on that piece of property. It will open the floodgates for problems in our tightly knit residential community. So I urge the committee, leave that piece of property the way it is. It's been in 2 other master plans that way. There is no reason not to continue it as a non-conforming piece. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a statement?
Yes, sir.
This is not a rezoning. Not a rezoning. We're only talking about master plan here. We are not rezoning anything. If any rezoning occurs, it's going to be down the road sometime, if any rezoning occurs. So please make your comments to the master plan, not to a rezoning.
Thanks, and that's exactly my understanding, and Kelly, you'll confirm that, I think, as well. There's no active request or proposal to rezone that property. It's been included in the future land use map,
That's correct.
but there is no active attempt to rezone that property or any of the adjoining properties on Oak Street or otherwise. So,
Correct.
thanks for clarifying that, Larry.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yes, sir.
also make another comment that might be useful
Please.
to the speaker? Kelly, is the Bundy's property, before the current zoning ordinance was passed, was that a non-conforming property? Because I understood it as a use that was permitted by the previous zoning ordinance that was then taken away in the recodification. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's really not, it's really only non-conforming since the new zoning ordinance, and that's sort of what we were attempting to write at that point.
Yes,
So the property beforehand has not been non-conforming for a number of years.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
And may I?
Please, go ahead.
So, I appreciate the concern for rezoning because the future land use map opens the opportunity to rezone. So I think that might be where the inaccurate use of the term. But I think because this opens the door for that, that is the concern. For the property, my understanding is it was a permitted use, but not necessarily the setbacks and things like that were compliant, correct?
I haven't evaluated the property for any dimensional nonconformity, so I'm only talking now about the use.
So, and, yeah, and so I'll reserve the rest of my comments for later. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else who would like to make a comment, please step forward.
Sigrid Hahn. I have a property on 232 Brockway Avenue. We back up to the current Victoria Resort. And my comment is very similar to the last gentleman. Obviously, when you're building a master plan, it's with the eye of what's going to happen in the future. So I know this current master plan is not discussing rezoning per se, but we want to strongly indicate that for us and our neighbors, having Victoria Resort be currently a non-conforming, now I forget all the numbers, but it's still considered to be single-family residence, but it's non-conforming. And in the master plan, it's looking to be changed to resort designation, which would open it up to building more buildings, things like that. I know there's no actual zoning ordinance. No, what are we saying? There's no actual, the technicalities are getting tricky on me now, but so it's similar to the last person. But obviously, when we're talking about a master plan, we're talking about what we want there in the future. So we want to strongly object to having a master plan where this can be a multifamily use property.
Thank you. Other comments?
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Philip Rome. I live at 95 Willow Court. I'm totally confused. I am here because it's my understanding that the master plan is looking at this piece of property of 89 North Shore Drive and making it a commercial property. And that's what the neighbors are opposed to. We're not talking about rezoning. We're talking about something that's designated on a map as commercial property. And if I'm wrong, then I will end my comments at this point. And if I'm not, I'm going to read what I have. Our retirement home was built 8 years ago during a time when the city was battling the surge of larger homes. We fell under a moratorium put in place to hold houses being built for the purpose of rentals. We had to appear in front of the zoning board to explain our plan and intention of use. Fortunately, we were allowed to proceed. Of course, we had to follow the required standards for the property setbacks. The setbacks of our home and those of our neighbors at 77 North Shore Drive and 95 North Shore Drive all meet the setbacks as required for an RM1 zone. The current non-conforming property of the bakery building at 89 North Shore Drive sits 7 feet from the sidewalk, which is 15 feet past the front of our properties. And if you look at that letter I sent you, you'll see a picture of that. And designate the property at 89 North Shore Drive as a commercial neighborhood business district, BM1, B1. You are allowing for the potential change in a traditional neighborhood business that would have the potential to expand way beyond what is tradition. As I stated in my letter to you, the goals and the action portion of the proposed 2025 master plan, item number 2, the residential development and neighborhood charter, the goal is to preserve the existing desired charter of neighborhoods established through the history and the tradition. The action item included under that number 1 states that maintaining the existing height and lot coverage requirements. If you proceed with allowing this property to be commercial, you are going back on the master plan that you're promoting. You are not listening to those of us that live in the neighborhood. There isn't a single one of the 9 properties that are immediately impacted by the change that have asked for or want this barn door opened. There isn't one of you on the commission that are impacted by what you could do by opening Pandora's box. We ask that you do not allow our neighborhood and its tradition to be changed. We love our home, we love our neighborhood, and that includes Bundy's Bakery and Cafe. Jim and Rachel are good neighbors. Their business thrives. People line up on the sidewalk to get in. Their customers sit in the lawn, and their children play on our front yard. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Other comments relative to the master plan?
My name is Morton Efron. I'm a retired lawyer. After 60 years, I gave up to enjoy South Haven here. My wife and her family owned property in South Haven since the early 40s, 1940s, and I enjoyed this again in 1969. We have a little cottage we bought on the lake, and since then on Oak Court we're talking about. Then later on in 84 and 85, when they started developing on either side of me, I developed the property into the condos, the 12 condos, right on the lake. It's been a real joy to be here, and we really liked watching how things were from when we first started here, when it was really run down. It was after the real heyday. It was run down, and we bought. There was very little there, and then they started developing, and we developed. And it's really become a wonderful place to come to. And I know they had hearings, I think it was last year, that they decided to do nothing. And I don't see any reason why they should try to change it now to give them a chance to do it again, so we'd have to come again. I thought it was over. There's no reason they can always do it if they have a reason. If for some reason it comes up that they want to change, they can change the law at that time. They can see what they want to do. It's become very busy. It's a wonderful place right now. We don't want anything that's going to expand business in our area. There were businesses there. They're all gone. This is a wonderful bakery. We do not want the bakery to go away. We want to keep it there. But no reason to expand it and expand it and expand it. So I suggest there's no reason now that you should change this to say we have it now. If it ever comes up again and someone wants to, you can do it at that time. But this is the second hearing they've had on this property, and I think they'll find time and time and time again to do something else. It helps the developer if you want to change now. That would be the only place in the area that would be developed. It's a nice bakery, very nice, just enough for the people, but it's getting more and more and more and more people coming. And if you make it bigger, you'd have even more people. So we had a very nice place to be in that area. Everybody enjoyed it. Everybody came, and everybody knew everybody else. But all of a sudden, there'd be no reason to expand this so that, excuse me, expand so we have other people coming, make it larger. I think if you leave it alone now, if somebody wants a change in the future, you can bring it up. But you can see by the number of letters you received, by everyone that we've talked to in that area, they are all against doing anything at this time. I hope you'll see fit to follow that.
Thank you very much. Other comments?
Good evening. Carlos Stivers, 136 Webster. I recently moved here about a year ago. I really like living in this community. I really like the neighborhood that I'm in, and I'm very concerned about the former nursing home and what might happen with the development of that piece of property. Webster is a great little street. It's a great little community. I love all the people that come in from out of town. I have people come in from out of town that I've known for a couple of years now, which is really neat, and they continue to come. And I think what they like about the neighborhood is that it's a really quiet street. There are great activities to do. And I'm thinking that we're in real jeopardy with this development at the nursing home. So I hope the council members will just really take into consideration the people that live on that street. And some of us are year-round residents, of which I am. And I just hope you make all due considerations to how our lives will change if that development goes in. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you very much for your comments.
His wife. 136 Webster. My name is Mary. Thank you, Carly, for saying that. I do want to note there are people that are renters who do come in, but there's also families on that street or individuals who are full-time non-rental homes. And after watching what went on with what they've done so far with that property, I think it fits in with the concern about the plan, because I'm not sure if, when I looked at it, if that's a water kind of conservative back in there. They cut down so many trees, I think there's concern about erosion now, which I hope would be part of the bigger plan. I heard you mention something about affordable housing in your introduction of this, and I've heard a lot of rumors about what's going in there, and it sounds like it's a resort, which doesn't seem to go with affordable housing. It sounds, the rumors that I've heard is that it's going to be part-time livers, there's going to be pools, pickleball courts, basketball courts. This is all nothing on paper, but when looking at affordable housing and land usage and protecting land, I hope that's being considered. I also want to say that I was kind of disappointed that the trees that were, it looks like a bomb went off in there. I'm kind of disappointed because the city truck goes down our street every day. Not once, no one went and looked to see what's going on there. I never did because it says keep out. But I'm concerned that that it took community to bring it to the attention that what is going on here. Anyways, good work, you guys. Hard job. But please have some consideration for people who live in the community and not just about renters and those who own property to rent. Let's build a community. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Todd Kephart, 80 Woodman Street. My wife Margaret and I own 2 condominiums in the lovely development that Mort developed. I don't have a lot to add to what Jim, Mort, and Phil said, other than just, again, want to state my opposition to changing the master plan to change the Bunny's property. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John Busma. I live at 3 Willow Court, right behind Bundy's Bakery. And again, with all my neighbors, we are all opposed to making any changes in the designation of that property. Please listen to what the community is saying to you. Don't just go on your own prerogative and make the changes. Listen to what we have to say. Please don't make any changes. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Liz Diaz. I'm speaking on behalf of my father, Norbert Diaz. Address is 230 Brockway. I just wanted to make a comment for my father and my family in regarding the master plan, some of the the drafting and the wording for this master plan in regards to the rezoning of Victoria Resort, which is directly behind our home. We are not a rental home. It's been a family home, year-round seasonal family home for the last 40 years. My family and I have been coming to South Haven for 60-plus years and enjoying the community. And as far as what's drafted in the master plan in regards to rezoning, we're requesting and asking you to not make any changes for any future rezoning of Victoria Resorts. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Heather Ostrike at 324 Oakway Drive, and I too am wanting to, for the record, make some remarks for consideration about the rezoning and the master plan on Oakway, Oak Street, and the Brockway area. I've proudly lived in this neighborhood for 18 years. I built this home. It's not a rental, and so clearly I have invested certainly financially, but not just in a property. I have invested in this community. I work for Bronson, and so I have a local eye to this, right? So I have invested financially in things like Safe Kids and the life jacket stations because I know what a growing problem that is, right, about safety on our beaches. And so I really care deeply about this community, as do all of you. And so I want to say that I'm not against progress, and I understand that communities grow and evolve. In fact, when I got married in 2013, my family stayed at the Victoria Resort, and so that is even near and dear to my heart, right? Those cottages, we have such fond memories of that. It's a gem, right? However, I have some serious concerns about the proposed rezoning and the impact of an increased development in that area. It's adding more density in this community as far as those packed beaches. I mean, any given weekend, right, there's a lot of people and a lot of safety concerns from where I sit as far as, like I said, working for the local hospital system and some of those outcomes. There's certainly traffic and parking have become increasingly difficult, and especially as somebody who's not renting, when renters and multifamily units come in, those parking spaces fill up so quickly. And so then you have the safety concerns, certainly, of people walking, pedestrians, bikers, et cetera. And I also think about it, I guess, from emergency vehicle perspective, right? Again, I bring a little different slant to this because I am so deeply involved in healthcare. And I also think about some of those things as we try to recruit new physicians and things like that to our community, new nurses and doctors. Housing is so incredibly not affordable at this point in time, and I know that's part of this, what you're all considering as far as how you move forward with the master plan. And so, again, I'm not here on official Bronson business by any stretch. I am a person and an individual. I just want to lift that up, and I know you think about these things from all angles. I just know that we are trying to recruit and retain excellent providers into this community, and cost of housing is one factor. So as I just kind of wrap up, I would hope that rezoning as far as the Victoria Resort is something that you'll give a lot of consideration to as far as those people who are living here and care deeply, as do all of you, about this community. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Any other comments?
Hi, I'm Catherine. I live on 232 Brockway Avenue. I've lived here my whole life. I'm here regarding the master plan and rezoning concerning the Victoria Resort. I'm worried about it changing the neighborhood. We don't need more density in our current single-family housing area. In the long run, it would bring traffic and unnecessary density to this neighborhood, and while this might not open direct doors into this, it does in the future give the opportunity to expand at an unnecessary rate. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
It's been moved and supported to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The hearing is closed. And I guess I'll say, because many of you not only spoke tonight, but communicated via email or other means, and all of those have been shared, and I know for myself, and I'm confident for every person sitting up here, they have been read and will get every consideration. And I'll say again, as Larry pointed out, the Bundy's property is not the subject of a rezoning, nor, and help me, Kelly, don't let me go astray here, nor is Victoria Resort. Victoria Resort has been there 100 years, I believe, and is a lawfully non-conforming use. Am I right there, Kelly?
Okay, so on the Bundy's property, there is no active rezoning request. Yes, that's correct. And on the Victoria Resort, the Planning Commission did receive an application for a rezoning for that property.
Right.
And we did hold a public hearing about that. And after that meeting, I had some conversations with the property owners, and they're currently contemplating a conditional rezoning, but they've not come back with an offer for your consideration yet. So I think that property is potentially being more actively considered for rezoning than any of the others that we've discussed tonight. With that said, I will also point out that the master plan designation for that property hasn't really changed. It's been on the future land use map as multifamily resort since 2018, since the 2018 master plan. And this group has not made a change to that designation. So that's not something that's been changed by this group or that is new.
Okay, thanks very much for that clarification. I think that's the last item of business. Kelly, what else do we need to do tonight?
Well, so next steps on the master plan would be for you all to have some discussion on next steps. So if there are any changes that you would like to make to the master plan in response to any of the public comment you've received over the last 63 days, it would be appropriate to discuss that now. If not, then it would be appropriate to let me know that you'd like me to bring a resolution back at the next meeting for recommendation of the plan to the city council.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
And
Of course.
I know I'm new, so I'm going to say that, but as it relates to Bundy's Bakery and changing, and I understand the distinction between zoning and the master plan, so I understand what we're saying there. What is our motivation for wanting to change the designation of Bundy's in the master plan? And again, I understand it's not a zoning change, so I do understand that. But why would we change the master plan for that piece of property?
Kelly has a good answer for that.
Good.
I can.
Please, Kelly.
I can answer that.
Did that earlier.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier when Mike asked the question about the zoning there. So in the previous zoning ordinance, Bundy's Bakery was a permitted use in the RM1 multifamily residential district, but it was narrowly a permitted use. And in such a way that really no other bakery would be permitted anywhere else in any other RM1 district in the city because of the way the language was written. And
So it was very targeted for that property?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And when we were working on rewriting the city zoning ordinance, we were advised by the planning consultants and a legal counsel that that solution really wasn't appropriate and legally questionable perhaps. And so the Bundy's Bakery provision was removed from the RM1 zoning district.
Okay.
And at that time, Bundy's became a lawful non-conforming use, where before they were a permitted use.
Okay.
So now they're lawful non-conforming, and the property owners expressed some concern about this. And at the same time, the Planning Commission had begun discussions on the master plan, and we were reviewing the future land use map. And we met around a table and discussed the possibility of designating that area as commercial, which might allow an opportunity for rezoning at a future date should the property owners desire to do that. And a rezoning to something like a B1 neighborhood business would allow them the freedom again to have a permitted use in a zoning district that's probably more appropriate than RM1.
But does the revision to the plan expand the potential commercial use beyond what it was previously?
And I suppose at the current time, it depends on your perspective.
Okay.
It would allow for a future request to be considered a little bit easier by this body. It's not an automatic guarantee. A request would have to come in, there would be a public hearing, there would be factors that the Planning Commission would consider. There are factors, always factors to consider with a rezoning request. And if the time was right for the rezoning, you all might agree to rezone the property or recommend rezoning to the City Council. And if there were factors that led you not to recommend the rezoning, you might make that decision. I mean, these are all what ifs.
Well, I think I asked that poorly.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to ask is, does the master plan designate additional properties beyond Bundy's in the master plan, not in the zoning, as potentially commercial?
No, that was not the intent of this group.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to come up with a resolution by our next meeting for approval of the master plan.
I second.
Further discussion, please.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. As I said, I submitted several comments, some typographical errors, things like that for consideration and amendment. But there are some key factors, and I'll just start with Bundy's because that's what was discussed most recently. So the master plan indicates that it would be, if it were rezoned to B1, it would then be a lawful use, but it does not address, and Kelly had indicated that it, dimensional aspects are not confirmed. And having gone there, actually just this morning, it is a concern that the setbacks are not appropriate. And the B1 actually allows significantly more options for use, restaurants, retail business, residential units above permitted use, professional offices, financial institutions, art studios. And what I am hearing from the residents and received in public comment is that they support Bundy's, they support that commercial use. In the previous rezoning, there was a carve-out, for lack of a better description, to allow the bakery to continue. And if it were rezoned, it could be bigger than just the bakery. And so I would recommend that the language on page 64 be modified to, if the future land use map continues as commercial with the qualification for B1, that it be conditional to retain the consistent business activity with the current use intensity that it has been for X number of years, tens of years, so that it's clear from the master plan that the door is not open for anything under that zoning district, but we are trying to balance the interests of the surrounding property owners who have invested and have a community there, and the interests of the business owner to be able to do what the business owner has always been able to do. And that just helps expectations. I mean, that's what a master plan is supposed to do, is supposed to identify the road to take and help people appreciate what to expect in that area. For Victoria's Resort, similarly, and that's also on page 64 of the master plan, the language, it's been identified during the rezoning request that Victoria Resort, although it calls itself a resort and it's been a resort, if it were rezoned to RM1, there's actually an extra step. You are not just automatically a resort in RM1. You actually have to file a special land use permit. So it's a two-step process. And so I would recommend that the language associated with the Victoria Resort be modified to clarify that simply rezoning does not make it a conforming use. It would also require a second step for a special land use. Those two steps could potentially be combined with a conditional rezoning so that the landowner would only have to do it once. But again, keeping it commensurate with the intensity that it has been, that it's had over numerous years. One concern I've heard is it turning into a convention center type situation where they could have receptions into the early morning hours. And that is it is a very residential area, very quiet area. The roads are very small, relatively speaking. They're not the main type of road really that a resort is supposed to be on under the RM1. Sorry, I moved to the page so I don't have it. There we go. And it's taking into consideration, the master plan would be taking into consideration that it's not just a simple rezoning, so that everyone can understand that the application has to take into consideration several factors above and beyond what a simple rezoning would be. And I think that provides, again, the balance that the homeowners who have lived there for many, many years and the new owners of Victoria Resort, who from everything I hear and what I see are doing a phenomenal job of updating it from the years that it was not updated from the previous owner, and making slight modifications to the language should assurances to the homeowners, to the community, to the residents, and the resort owners that we really are trying to help us grow, but respectful of our community. For Bundy, so forgot the one question. So initially the document had lines, lot lines, and the lot lines were removed, and I appreciate that future land use is regional area, but with such small lots, it would benefit to include a comment in the language in the document on page 64 that it really is only associated with the 89 North Shore Drive and not the one Oak Court, because I know previous versions had both parcels, and we had heard from previous Planning Commission meetings that the owner of one Oak Court was not supportive of their land also being identified as commercial. The other item I wanted to bring up was the property associated with the 425 agreement, which is also on page 64. And for that one, I would really like to know if the property owners of the 425 agreement were informed of the changing of the future land use map because the current zoning ordinance has it as industrial or commercial, and the previous future land use map had that, but now it's being changed to a potentially new zoning district, which could frustrate what their future plans are. And I appreciate that for a future land use map, we just are obligated to do general notices, but with our smaller community and with W.R. Grace being a major employer in the area and their property being affected where the future land use zoning would be mixed use, in my discussions with their site manager, it sounds like industrial would be more appropriate. So the current land use is industrial east and commercial west, and it might be beneficial and it would be commensurate with what Mr. Pacina had requested, is that the property to the west would also be industrial. It just sounds like improvements, advancements that W.R. Grace wants to make would better fit in the industrial zoning district than the mixed-use zoning district. And also for that property, because it goes all the way to Alworth, I was curious whether the people who are using the soccer fields are aware of this change, because it's moving public land from that to mixed use and could affect that. I just didn't understand why such a large piece of property, I understand it's all part of the 425 agreement, but would be changed so drastically. And so differences between the 2018 master plan update and the current master plan update. So in 2018, there was charrettes, there was a lot of public input, and it lasted a long time. And from that, they had the various zoning districts. Through this update that was really focusing on coastal resilience, it merged all those various districts into one. And I appreciate the flexibility that provides, but at the same time, that creates lack of clarity, because then you don't know exactly what would be going in those districts. So I'm just raising a concern.
These are future land use categories. Correct. I would like to remind everybody, they're not zoning districts, they're future land use categories.
Categories that would create new zoning districts, correct? Because you would need the zoning, or it would update zoning districts to include it.
They're future land use categories that inform potential future zoning decisions.
Right.
And I think
Which
it's
is not a
important.
rezoning.
It's important that you mentioned Mr. Pacina's property. This is something I wanted to bring up to the group tonight. I know that Mr. Pacina has made a specific request of this group, but I would remind all of you that the City Council recently voted to remove Mr. Pacina's property from the 425 area. And so my recommendation would be the most appropriate course of action, if any, regarding our map would be to remove the parcel from our map, since this parcel will no longer be under the city's jurisdiction.
But my understanding is the township also has to vote on that, and one of the staff reports had indicated it was unclear whether the township would approve that or not. Do you have information to the contrary?
I don't, but I don't feel that it's wise to expend city resources on a rezoning request or future plans for this parcel that's likely to revert to the township sooner rather than later.
I totally agree with Kelly. It's kind of a moot topic until the township takes an action and the property is returned to the township.
Except for the fact that I believe it is adjacent to W.R. Grace property, and my understanding from talking with the site manager that it might be more beneficial for that property to the west to also be industrial for advancements that they would want to make. So it's not just Mr. Pacina's property affected by that request. And then with regard to countryside, you know, with the clear cutting, the maps that are in the master plan with regard to canopy covering and things like that, those are now outdated. The language is outdated because it identified the nursing home and it's not there anymore. It was demolished by February, March-ish. And so I would recommend that that be updated, especially with this being coastal resilience, that being right on a ravine of state waterway, that would be beneficial. And then just quickly, so for housing, I would like better wording for missing middle, and I think a couple sentences are inconsistent. And the second sentence in that paragraph, I don't have the page, but it's in my notes, is more aligned with missing middle and not having dense apartments, but having duplexes, triplexes, possibly quadruplexes. And it would not necessarily need to be a zoning district, but I would encourage allowing them in residential districts where they would fit in the footprint of the current dimensional requirements. A special land use was identified. My concern is that may be an additional hurdle that may not be needed. It may be easily resolved with a site plan, which is not normally done for residential areas. There was no mention of tiny homes, and if we were to do tiny homes, we would have to address the one use, one main dwelling unit per lot. But I know that that is a very significant concern with year-round residents and not being abused for short-term rentals. So those are the majority of, the highlight of the comments that I provided in writing.
Thanks, Mary, and you've provided that in great detail, and I think you shared that with city staff, with Kate and Planning Commission members, so thanks for your efforts there. So we have a motion and a second to direct staff to prepare a resolution. Any other
Question.
Pardon me?
So, just a question. So if we're voting on the motion, does that then basically say none of what Mary has provided will be considered because we're just, because we wouldn't have it coming back to us again? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so for that very reason, I would not be supporting that resolution because I think there are not a significant number of changes, but the few changes are significant, especially for the balance of our residents and allowing more clear path forward for our commercial uses and industries. And I would welcome support from other planning commissioners to do that, and also taking typographical errors like reference to short-term rentals in the RM1 district, which are now no longer allowed. They're only allowed in overlay districts and things like that.
Well, I certainly would support the, you mentioned, for example, the use of the word inshore versus ensure, deleting the references to countryside and so on.
I could make a motion.
Please.
I could make an amendment to the motion to only include the typographical errors which were pointed out by Member Hosley to be included in the draft coming back.
Support.
Been moved and supported to include the typographical errors outlined in the documents, the comments that Commissioner Hosley has included.
Discussion. Yeah, so there's only 3 minor typographical errors, and I appreciate your support on that, Commissioner Gruber, but it really is a strikeout for balancing the concerns of our residents for such an important document that guides future land uses. Especially, just looking at my general comments about the fact that wetlands in two areas are identified as 59.8 acres, and in another area identified as 72.7 acres. I can't say which is a typographical error, but there are significant differences. And especially with the maps for the 120 baseline property, especially map 12 that shows canopy coverage, especially as it relates to map 15 that identifies potential conservation areas. Map 12 should be significantly different with the clear cutting at 120 baseline. And putting this through with the outdated map, I think, is a disservice to the community on the north end of our city.
So if I might ask Becca to come up and talk a little bit about those maps specifically, Mr. Chairman, I think that might provide some insight about why we can't update the maps.
Yeah, so when we do the mapping, our GIS person uses information that's provided from satellites and has already been semi-analyzed. And so when we created the maps, we used the best available data, and that is still the best available data. It doesn't get updated on a day-to-day basis. It's not updated on a month-to-month basis. So it's very difficult to update the maps when we've used the best available data. And then also, at any given moment, we could have a storm that takes out a couple trees, and we just recognize that when the maps were created, that is the information that was available. We can't keep updating it every day or every month that something major happens, unfortunately. Our data systems are just not at that point.
Then I would recommend that they be dated, because it wasn't just a couple trees. It was clear cutting of more than 1 acre.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely add dates.
But Becca makes a good point, too. We could have a significant wind event. I mean, I was at Kalamazoo Country Club not long ago, and they lost 60 trees on the golf course and on the surrounding property. That would surely affect their canopy cover. I don't think we need to redo mapping to reflect that. That's my opinion. And whether there are 72 acres or 59 acres of wetlands, in my opinion, that's not a significant difference.
As a comment on the wetlands, that can just be from different sources. So the 72.7 was taken from the Edgewater resources, and the 59.8 was taken from our GIS sources, and those could be very different sources that analyze the information very differently, and so that can be why they're different numbers. So without going in and digging deep into the metadata of all of that, it's a very difficult thing to figure out which one is more accurate.
Thanks for that clarification. Any other discussion?
Just so I understand what was said about the canopy map being dated. Are there any other maps that are here that will also be dated, or is that really only applicable to that map? Because I think the general comment actually would apply to almost any map you do. And you come back in 6 months, and it's going to look different.
These are always outdated.
Yeah, and again, it just depends on the data that's available.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you're also going to date the other maps. That's really my only
We
question.
can add dates to all the maps, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, point of order. You had a motion with some language regarding typographical, and now we're into maps. And you have quite a large bundle to decipher, and I would think we would stick with each motion and proceed, take a bite out of each one, rather than becoming confused with the information that's coming forth.
And we have a motion from Clark that was supported to include the typographical items that were included in Commissioner Hosley's comments. I think we've had some discussion on that. Do we need a roll call vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries. And then we had the.
So I will make a second motion to supplement the original motion, that the language on page 64 for Bundy's and Victoria Resort be amended to support conditional rezoning that is commensurate with the current use intensity of the respective parcels.
You're referring to language in your comments?
I'm referring to the two paragraphs that refer to Bundy's and separately to Victoria Resort on page 64 of the master plan, and that the current language just summarily says that rezoning will make them lawful uses, and to balance the concerns of the residents and the business owners, I would move that the language clarified that the rezoning should be conditional, such that the current use does not significantly increase the use intensity of the current use.
So for Samantha's sake and mine, could you state clearly and succinctly your motion?
That's what I'm looking at. That has a link. I'm trying to find. So,
Councilmember Hasley, I'm struggling to find the reference to Bundy's on page 64. I'm sorry, so I'm just not quite with you.
Oh, maybe it's.
I've got the Victoria
Yep,
reference.
I thought they were both on 64, but it may. Well, why don't we do Victoria Resort on page 64? And established resort located at Oak Street. I would strike established. I would just say a resort, I guess strike the N of Ann. A resort located on Oak Street is recommended for MFARR land use. Land use with a I'll just make it simple, but it'll be more difficult for the landowner, unfortunately, being put on the spot like this. Land use with a special land use permit subsequently obtained, it may likely legally So a resort located on Oak Street is recommended for MF/AR/R land use since it and I would strike it as likely an existing non-conforming use.
I have some concern that this motion is making an effort to dive too far into the specific in a document that is intended to focus on the big picture. And while the current zoning ordinance would require the property owners of the Victoria Resort to obtain a special land use, should they be rezoned, they would be required to obtain a special land use permit from this body for any new building on the site. They would not need to obtain a special land use simply to continue operations as they currently are. And am concerned that adding language that you're about to propose will make it seem otherwise in our master plan, and it's not accurate.
Seems awfully detailed. I mean, doesn't our master plan in its current form meet the goals that we set out to perform?
We already have a two-step process. There's the rezoning, and if the rezoning is proposed to expand the use to anything greater, then it comes back before us again for a site plan review.
Correct.
So there is a two-step process there already. And secondly, I'm concerned about the precedent this sets. To put in your master plan something that takes the authority of the planning commission to review a site, I think is dangerous.
I agree.
Yeah,
And actually, and with respect to the Bundy's property, I mean, I think we all agree why we did what we did, and it would be my suggestion that our minutes merely document our motives so that in the event that the owner or an owner comes back in the future to a planning commission requesting a rezoning, that planning commission, with staff's help, will understand the intent of this commission as to why we did what we did. And then it will inform all the data they have to then be able to help them decide how to accomplish the rezoning, with or without conditions.
I think that was well said.
yeah, it's just, as it was pointed out during the rezoning heard in April before this body for Victoria Resort, there was questions whether it is legally existing non-conforming use. So that's, and to encourage conditional rezoning to balance the concern of the residents with regard to the use, because RM1 and resort do allow significantly more, and the same with regard to Bundy's, which is on page 67. So, and also, as was raised, excuse me, in communication, the wording raises a concern, because it's not that the businesses slowly moved out. One was condemned and closed, the other one was closed. So, and there was an effort from the city to make this all residential. And so they have relied on that plan that it was residential, and that the business in their residential district was limited to a bakery, which was the limited aspect. So at least for the Bundys, what I would encourage is that it could be, the last sentence says, this could be brought into conformance as use permitted in the B1 zoning district if desired by the city. Somehow putting in conditional such that the use is commensurate with the current use. And we've seen it, well, I know people right next to Bundy's have seen things just explode there. You know, one house is a duplex with 32 people. How do they know that this building may not be bought, demolished, and then something larger be put in? I am attempting to put in some guidance so that it is clear, because thank you for the suggestion on the minutes, but people don't go back to the minutes. They just simply look at the master plan, they say B1, great, what can we put in B1? And then they try to put in the biggest thing they can.
In the B1 neighborhood business district, it does say that businesses in this zone are scaled to be compatible with the neighborhood character.
That's good to hear.
All right, we still have a motion on the floor. Tim, would you restate your motion? It's been a while.
Just a question, she was making a motion, was it
No, I-
completed, or,
I thought that,
or no motion?
I thought there was no motion there.
Okay, since my motion's been amended, I think best Samantha would read it as amended.
So your original motion was to direct staff to come up with a resolution for approval of the master plan provided at the next meeting. And then Clark amended it to include only the typographical errors that were pointed out by Councilmember Hosley.
That's my understanding.
And then we did have agreement about putting the dates. Should we add that as a motion for the dates for the maps?
There's consensus from the group that the dates should be added on the map, then we can add dates to the maps.
I think that's like electing a pope. I think we all consented to that.
All right, then, can we have a roll call on the amended motion?
Campbell,
Yes.
Fenton,
Yes.
Gruber,
Yes.
Heinig,
Yes.
Hosley,
No.
Polk,
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Sorry.
You're going to go
Sorry.
last.
Pardon me?
Still get the last vote. Nice.
Stegman,
Yes,
Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
this time.
Thank you. Kelly, was there anything else you needed then in regard to moving that forward?
Not today, thank you all. Anything from you? Okay, thank you.
All right. I think on the original agenda, we're down to
Comments not on the agenda.
public comments from citizens in the audience may address the Planning Commission regarding items that are not on the agenda, other items of concern that you'd like us to be aware of.
Lisa, looks like Lisa may be coming over.
Lisa Croupiers, 561 Indiana Avenue. I would like to talk tonight about signs, couple different variations. After our last meeting, when we were discussing the definition of non-permanent signs, I believe, I don't know if I actually formulated an email and sent it, but there was I did have an idea about how we could differentiate in non-permanent signs. Clearly, the signs that a lot of residents struggle with are the clunky wooden signs used by a couple different property management companies. The thing that is very different about these signs is they have to be built or constructed before they are able to be used. So that might be a differentiating point, that a sign that has to be built or constructed would not be considered a non-permanent sign. Yes, that's what I did mean to say. So that the signs that are the corrugated signs that fit on a metal frame, something to that effect would be more likely to be a non-permanent sign. And I hope that's clear. So if a sign has to be built or constructed, that it needs to be identified as a permanent sign instead of a non-permanent sign. We don't need to talk about the height, anything else. That sign clearly has to be made and constructed by somebody. It is a permanent sign. It is not a non-permanent sign. The other thing I want to talk about is electronic signs. I don't know if there is any system in place. I feel like I have to be the one to get up at like 3 in the morning and go check the electronic signs and see if they are actually following the recommendation of being turned off from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. if there is anything that is documented about whether that does take place. That is one of the ordinance guidelines. Also, the use of amber lighting, and then the messages cannot change less than every 10 seconds. So there's the Chamber of Commerce, there's the Phoenix Street on Broadway, and those I do think change more frequently. Then there's 412 Phoenix. That sign I've had many people complain to me, and as I was formulating a letter about that, I looked up the property, and the violation states exactly that. We have received many complaints about 412 Phoenix. The sign has been warned of violations, that it is not using amber lighting, and I can't remember what the other violation was. But the next action date was 6/27, and I just looked on the BSA online, and there has been no indication that action was taken. So there are clearly two violations. Like I said, I can't remember it's the amber, they're not using the amber. Oh, it's probably the 10 seconds, the rotation. Plus, it seems to be really oversized for its space. So, the permit, it did not obtain a permit, and that was one of the stipulations. Thank you. That was one of the stipulations in the original plan, the site plan, is that a permit had to be obtained to put the sign up, or to obtain a sign, and there was no permit issued. So 6/27 is long gone, and there's been no action, and it appears that there has been no attention given to the warning, and I don't understand why a violation has not been issued and the sign brought into compliance. Thank you.
Yeah, excuse me, any other comments regarding items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we have no unfinished business, and I believe we have no new business, which takes us to commission member and staff comments. Mike, I'm sorry. Kelly.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank
For
you.
your first meeting. We're happy to have you here. I also wanted to let you all know, since the Holland Sentinel let the cat out of the bag, that Luke Thompson will be rejoining us in South Haven. He has accepted a position with our office to be a short-term rental inspector. So we are happy to have Luke back, and he will start on August 11th. So we're very happy that he'll be
That
back
is
with
great
us.
news, I think.
That is good news.
You'll be
I
able to
did
go
not
to the
know that.
wellness center much more regularly.
Yes.
Thanks. Anything else, Kelly?
That's it from me. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
May
sir.
I ask Kelly a question?
Of course.
Kelly, the Hale redevelopment project,
Yeah.
it was approved in the latter half of 2023, and it had a projected start of construction date of November 2025, which is fast approaching. I know I've had a number of people asking me about progress and if it's going to proceed, and I know another commissioner asked me the same question because they had others asking them.
Yes.
So can you give any update on to whether this is going to proceed on schedule or what the next steps would be?
Yeah, I know that the development team has faced some delays. I don't have a great update to give on that. I know we're all looking forward to that development in our downtown. It's a big city block that's sitting there vacant. And so I would expect that we'll have an update from them in the coming weeks, but I don't have one right now.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Along the same lines, we've gotten, I think, a couple emails, City Council has possibly, about that site and the fence. Is
Yes.
anything being done?
Yeah, we've had lots of conversations about that fence, and I think ideally, if the delays are going to continue, it would be great if we could get a more permanent solution to the fencing there, and I know those are conversations that the city manager is having with the development team.
And just separately, has anything new been filed for the 120 baseline, or is it?
I do have an application, and I expect to notice a public hearing for that for the next meeting.
For application for?
For 120 baseline.
What kind of application can you
A
say?
rezoning application.
Okay, Mike, did you have any others, or was those your only comments?
No, I have other comments. Thank you, Tim. Welcome, Paul. Congratulations, Bob. And thanks to the audience for the comments about the master plan. My substantive comment is really one, hopefully after we are done with the master plan, that we can have some good discussions about items within the plan itself to advance ideas from this body to city council around housing and other options. It was something that was brought up in our most recent Michigan Association of Planning Pro-Housing Series seminars that was just a couple of weeks ago, about how the Planning Commission should be really taking on meaty things and trying to push as many of the administrative things to staff to be able to have the time to have those kinds of conversations. So I look forward, I know we're waiting for this to be done, but I do look forward to having those kinds of conversations once this is finalized.
Well said, I think. Mary, any comments?
Welcome, Paul. Congratulations, Bob. Just if you hadn't seen City Council regarding the sign ordinance, the City Council did ask staff to look at the terminology again, and I'm not sure if it will come back as non-permanent, temporary. We deferred to legal and city staff to decide how best to do it, but there was a concern that signs that would fall under what the ordinance that was sent to them were more permanent than non-permanent, but fell within the non-permanent definition. So we had requested more clarity about that, and to the best of my understanding, it will come back to City Council before it comes back to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Janice, anything?
Yes, I've been attending some of those workshops that we get online. And the last one was use by right and administrative approval, and it gets to your point that if we give more to the administrative side of the house, we could be having these conversations, especially the housing one, that I think is very, very important, that we need to take up and be proactive in planning, in our planning. But I was really happy to know that after listening to the meeting, that we're right on target. I mean, really, we have this, our gold standard, so to speak, that we measure everything by. It's all set there, and so that much of that has been done by the administrative staff as well. And so when we get our packet, a lot of that work has been done for us. So if we can keep that clarity in what our expectations are and what our standards are, a lot of those decisions can be made by the administrative staff and not have to come back here over and over again. So more administrative approval is what they're advocating, and codifying some of that so that the staff can move quickly ahead with some of those decisions and not have to bring them here each time. I do want to thank Tim. Tim, you've really led us for the last many years since I've been sitting here in a very strong and productive way, and I really appreciate everything that you've done for us here. And I'm sure that Bob is going to benefit from your advice and guidance as he's learning the ropes, and I have to say you did a good job today, Bob. If I was just thrown in that seat, it would have been very hard to get started again. So I really thank you for that. And we're glad to have you as our vice chair, too.
Larry, you always have something profound to say. Please give us something profound.
I'm not sure about the profound part, but I do always have something to say. Welcome, Paul. As you can see, it does get kind of complex at times. I do not envy you just starting at this point. I'm glad I have some of that behind me. But we'll help you along.
Thank you.
Eddie's been studying too pretty hard, so he can help you even now. Bob, we're gonna do what we can to help you handle it. And Tim, much thanks for what you've been doing.
Thank you for that slight update on what might be happening in Baseline. So we were just wondering. And I think Mike did a nice job of starting us out with that overall comment of once this is behind us, there's some good work to be done. Congratulations to both Bob and Larry. Sounds like a radio team there. I do appreciate the past chairman's motion. That must be a testament. And yes, he's really, I think, taught us a lot over the years of excellent leadership. I give you about a B tonight. I know that there are a couple things we can work on. We'll get there. And once again, thank you and welcome to Paul, a longtime member of fill in the blank of the many volunteer organizations throughout the community. So having you up here again, thank you.
That's it. My turn, Bob?
Pardon me?
Is it my turn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I got to say something?
Please.
I will. Welcome also, Paul. Paul and I go back a long way in our nuclear careers. And we'll tell you more about that as we get a chance to.
Or not.
Or not. And Tim, I have the highest regard for the leadership that you've demonstrated. I know I've been a short-term member, but I certainly compliment you in your focus, consistency, and trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. Yeah, so I thank you for that. Congratulations, Bob, as well. And I'm sure that you'll fill those shoes adequately. Okay.
I don't know about that, but
You will. Mike and Janice, I won't repeat what you said, but I will compliment what you said, your comments. I think they were very profound, very clear, and I think that those things, it shows the strength of the potential strength of this committee, this commission, is to be able to speak, clarify, listen, question, and do this over and over again until we finally come to agreement and make a decision. That's a strength to be able to do that and not leave things so open-ended or someone just disgruntled. Kelly, you're amazing because you're the glue that ties the gaps together when we have questions, and you do that excellently. So there's a lot of strength on this commission, a lot of talent, a lot of gift. Your backgrounds, your knowledge, your experience, when you do your research to get answers, to look into problems, I think that's a great strength. And I just encourage this to continue. It's motivating for me too as well. So those are my comments, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
I could go on and on, but we got to go home sometime tonight.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Paul, anything to offer?
It was striking to me as I actually read the master plan several times, how far-reaching and far-ranging the document is. And my background's in engineering. I did a lot of project management, and we always tried to focus, narrower, higher priorities. And so there's lots and lots of actions in here, and the document really doesn't define priorities. So, as I'm thinking about what Mike and Janice said, to me, that's exactly right. There's all kinds of opportunities to go all kinds of different directions, and some are more important than others, and we'll probably have to pick where to go first. But I was really surprised how broad this document is.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Okay. Tim.
Welcome, Paul. You're going to be a great addition to this board. You're very succinct.
That's good.
And that helps on these meetings because they can become very long, but you're very knowledgeable, so it's a great fit. Should have been about 3 years ago. We should have had a switch of chairs, but it's hard to get people to step up to that position. So I'm glad you did, because that allows me to do some things I can't do as the chair, which I greatly appreciate. And then when asked how long I've been chair, I don't even know. So that means it's been too long. So thank you.
All right.
Next up, I've got 4 small items, and they have to do with some safety. First one would be the Phillips Street medical corridor. For being a medical corridor, the sidewalks are a pitiful shame. The wheelchair accessibility is awful. There's several people that use the nursing home that are in wheelchairs that try to get across the street to go to the hospital, but the road's pretty steep. The curve has no signage that would indicate maybe you better slow down. So I think you might have to work with MDOT because of the easement. There's one sidewalk that goes completely on, let's say, the north side of Phillips, but the east side of Phillips, it only has some in front of the wellness center. It needs to at least go beyond the dentist office, the cleaning office, and where the nursing home is. So I would somehow, when you're at a staff meeting, I would think that should percolate to the top and start working on that one. Next up, two-way stops near the Episcopal Church. Those are continually run. Cars go through them. So I think we have some traffic problems over there that somehow we've got to change the signage or the painting on the road. That's just, it's all the time, especially right now with all the visitors. So, and I think the main ones, what is it, Erie and Superior? Next up, as an example, Indiana Street, the parking on both sides of it leaves one lane. Cars are having to back up into the parking of the homes in order to let other cars go by. So I think we need to rethink how that traffic pattern's working. And then lastly, the fencing that was mentioned for the Hale Locker property, I've received at least 20 comments by this point, and I'm glad you're going to start getting all those calls too.
Just forward your phone.
I'm going to forward all sorts of stuff. But yeah, if that doesn't go forward, rather than plastic fence, should be a non-see-through type till when that is developed. That way it just doesn't look so decrepit. And I agree with the comments I've received, so that's it. Those are the big items.
Okay, well, I'm going to echo what I said earlier and what several of you have said, and that is a sincere, genuine thanks to Tim for many, many years. I think your action tonight was a gracious and generous and magnanimous one to do what you did, so I appreciate that. I'm going to rely on Clark to kick me in the shin and Larry to a sharp elbow to my ribs whenever I fail to do something or don't do something quite right, so please do that. And I'll ask for a great deal of patience from all the rest of you. And Kelly, I'll probably be on your doorstep every day looking for guidance, help, direction, and anything else you might offer. So
I think that would be a good move.
yeah, I want everybody to know I didn't seek this, but if I can contribute in any way, large or small, I'm glad to be here and to do this. So, like I said, thanks very much for your support and your patience and your guidance going forward. That said, are we in need of a motion to adjourn? Or do we just adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Let the new man make the motion.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
All right.
It's been moved and supported to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks. We are adjourned.
Very good.